You've hit play on the Screen Companion, where we'll help you pick something for movie night. We're doing Ladies versus Hades. The inspiration for this one was I wanted Sarah back on, and she is the queen of horror on this podcast.
If you say so. Well, we are getting into my favorite time of the year, which is spooky season, so I felt like this was appropriate.
There was that side of it, and also an episode, I think it was in the first season, that I really liked, that I felt came out well, was an episode called 80s Starring Ladies.
Oh, yes.
And it just so happens that the rhyming scheme, I was like, oh, Hades and ladies.
It worked out perfectly.
If I can ever come up with two movies that focus a lot on food, maybe I'll do Ladies and Gravies next time.
That would be a good one. You could do like Julia, the one about Julia Child. There's got to be another one.
See, we're already cooking.
I know. I see what you did there.
So for this episode, we're talking Warlock from 1989 and Demon Knight from 1995. Starting with Demon Knight, which tells the tale of a drifter named Breaker, pursued by a man in a wide-brimmed hat called the Collector. Tracked to a hotel out in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, Breaker has to take a stand against the Collector, obtaining an ancient key, which will spell doom for humanity and give rise to demons. The hotel's denizens, forced into this eternal struggle, include Roach, a selfish bastard, Irene, the hotel owner, Uncle Willie, the town drunk, and Geraldine, a 20-something thief on work release, acting as Irene's helper. Can they survive the night? And is one of them Breaker's fated successor to take up the mantle of Demon Knight? Here's a hint. It's not the older hotel owner, the asshole, or the drunk.
I kind of wish it was Uncle Willie, though.
I do like that actor, Dick Miller.
Yes, I did too.
So this flick is an extension of the Tales from the Crypt franchise, and does feature the Crypt Keeper in bookends. Does this feel like a good progression of the brand, or do you think it was too different to be associated with the show?
It seemed really different. I will say I knew I was going to be in for a bit of a rough ride whenever I saw boobs within the first 5 minutes of the movie. That's typically a sign to me that the movie's going to be a little rough with the storyline.
Oh, really?
Yes. If you've got to try to make as much nudity work as you possibly can in a movie, especially in the beginning, to me it's not a good sign.
Well, there are probably a lot of reasons for this. And this might be the only time I wish Stacy was on this episode. I'm going to coin a term here, because I had the opposite response. At the very beginning, within 2 minutes of the movie, we have a woman in a tub with, I think they're fake breasts, do you think?
Oh, they were definitely fake. They were definitely fake. Trust me, no woman's boobs are that perfectly round or that perfectly perky.
Not naturally. They didn't come out that way.
Not naturally.
I have personal experience with perfect breasts like that. But yes, they weren't made by the Lord.
No.
They were made by Dr. Greenfeld.
You had to give him a Jewish last name.
No, I gave him a successful name in medicine, okay?
Okay, who just happens to be Jewish.
Exactly. But the term I want to coin, and for me is a good sign, for you a bad sign, I'm going to call it gratuities. So the gratuities, yes, that first moment is, but would you consider later in the movie when Uncle Willie gets his fantasy, do you think that's gratuitous?
Yes, it definitely was. For the movie watchers, but especially for Uncle Willie. He was living his best life in that moment. With all the booze and the breasts. Do I think that the movie would have been better or worse without it? I don't really think it made a difference at that point.
Well, we have the example of the prostitute character who also lives at the hotel.
Right.
And throughout the movie, the collector is trying to seduce everybody, get into their heads, make them deals to get them to betray everybody else.
Well, he tells them their deepest, darkest desires and wishes.
Sure, so we have maybe the female version of that as it relates to love or sexuality. And with her, it's like a romance novel. And the lighting, you get all this edge bloom on Billy Zane, and he's looking at her from the ground level.
Very Romeo and Juliet.
It's all these whispers on the wind.
Whispers of love. Telling her everything she wants to hear.
Exactly, and you juxtapose that with Uncle Willie, who is an older gentleman.
He just wants titties.
His best years might be behind him, so whether or not we needed titties, I think that's definitely up for debate. But as far as do all those titties in that fantasy fit the Uncle Willie character and how the demon's going to appeal to an older man like that, I think it fits.
Of course, it does. It fits well for that. I just don't think that it was anything that made the movie any better or worse. But it made sense for his character, and it made sense for the scene. Dirty old drunk guy would be happier with a bunch of young boobs around him. Literally and figuratively.
But don't you think it does make it a little funnier that they're all naked like that?
I don't know if it makes it funnier, per se.
You didn't laugh?
No, I didn't, I was like, oh, here come more boobs.
Okay, fair enough.
But, I'm not watching a movie for the breast scenes.
Neither am I. It's just, it's like hot sauce. When you add a little bit.
It's an added bonus.
Yeah, it's nice. I like the flavor.
Yeah, there you go.
In regards to this being a Tales from the Crypt movie, I would argue that it's too close to the show.
You thought so? It's been a long time since I watched Tales from the Crypt.
Well, the story of the movie, I think it has the simplicity of the show as far as the actual narrative. And I wish they spread their wings more in the film version, because the silliness, would you say Demon Knight has a lot of silly?
I don't know if silliness is the first word that comes to mind when I was watching that movie. Yes, there were definitely some moments where I was like LOLing.
And that can sustain a shorter format in television.
Right.
But I wanted to take Breaker's struggle and the threat to the hotel occupants more seriously than I think the script wanted me to, because it's used to the tone of the show, which usually doesn't want you to like the characters too much, because usually it's a morality tale and the main character is going to get their just desserts. But Breaker's a hero, and in this version I don't think anybody wants to see him fail.
No, I mean, he definitely was the hero. You are correct. The characters were painted pretty well as far as what role they were going to have in the film. Like, as soon as I saw Roach, I was like, I know this guy's going to be an asshole. The name alone lets me know he wasn't going to be a good character.
As long as we stay inside and stay together. We just have to make it through the night.
And that stuff's gonna keep him out?
There are only two things we can use against them. The blood that's in this key.
It's blood?
And anything that destroys their eyes. Frees their tortured souls.
What?
He's crazy.
Deal with it.
No, you deal with it, man. They got no quarrel with us. They just want you and that thing you're carrying. I say we give it to them.
And I say they'll kill you anyway. Or possess you. Or use you to get to the rest of us. Well, like it or not, we stick together.
My cat's outside. I gotta get my cat.
You go out, you stay out.
Is that so? What are you gonna do? Shoot us?
Right in the eyes.
Was it as maddening to you as it was me, this notion that Roach is such a jerk? Why do they not suspect him of foul play earlier than they do?
I know. That was bugging me, too. I was like, we really gave him the key to hold?
Was that pun intended?
Yes.
Oh, good. See? Thank you, Sarah. So many of my guests are unwilling to participate in my stupid pun action.
I mean, you gotta do it. When you walk right into it, you've just gotta accept it.
I totally agree. You're preaching to the choir. Thank you for joining me in this endeavor.
You're welcome.
But as much as Breaker is a hero, the theme of this episode that we're doing, Ladies versus Hades, in this case, the lady is Jada Pinkett as Geraldine, and she ends up very heroic herself. How well do you think she functions as the final girl? What did you dig or dislike about her character?
So I really liked that her character definitely had that strong female vibe about it. Like, she was a very strong woman. The way she carried herself in the movie, and just, she did not let herself fall for the lies that were being told to her, and really embodied that female power character.
Yeah, and compared to the other movie we'll discuss, she is lippy.
She has that rough edge.
Yeah, she has somewhere to go with the character.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of horror movies, especially when they have a female protagonist, they usually make them very incapable at the beginning.
I was going to say ditzy, but yes.
That works too. They're kind of related. So yeah, it was nice that Geraldine already looks like she could do some damage in a fight, or at least fight all the way down.
Yes, and it reminded me of her much smaller role in Scream 2. She's in the very beginning murder scene, and she had a very similar vibe about her, where she was like this very strong female, and she didn't want to be at the movie. She knew it was a bad idea, but she went anyways because her boyfriend wanted to go. And she ended up getting chopped up in the movie theater. I guess she had better luck with this film.
Did the logic of the supernatural elements make sense to you?
Yeah, they were doing a whole Jesus thing with it, and I knew where they were going with it.
I was struggling with what powers the Collector really had, and if Breaker had so few, and he's part of a long line of demon knights protecting that blood key, have the demons not gotten it yet?
That's a good question. Now that you lay it out there like that, I think that's a valid point that you're making. How did they not get it sooner? He wasn't a super strong character, but I think he was quick, and that's probably what had saved him for so long.
You can use drops of blood from the key to create mystical barriers and openings like windows and doors. Okay, immediately I'm thinking, Breaker has been a demon knight for decades, and just seeing the amount of blood he uses in this movie, it's like, how did you have enough blood? Because it only gets refilled as it gets passed along between demon knights. And two, okay, you create mystical barriers that demons can't get through. If they can't get through that window, what's to stop them from sticking their head through the drywall next to that window?
They're not that smart.
They're like, oh, a door, and it's got a mystical barrier. Well, I can only walk through doors.
What I couldn't tell if they were trying to show like nuclear waste or just magical green sludge. I was really struggling with that. When he made the demons come, I was like, is it because he's poured nuclear waste on the ground?
The Collector cuts his own palm, so it's his blood.
Oh, that's not what it looked like to me. It looked like nuclear waste.
For sure.
That's why I was struggling. I was like, does nuclear waste summon the demons?
Become an active listener by joining the Screen Companion. Subscribe on YouTube, hit us up on X, and our Facebook group. Let us know your favorite episodes and what topics or films we should tackle next. Further support the host by buying his novel, Self-Recognition, a futuristic detective story, available on Amazon in print and digital formats. Now, back to the show. The other thing I'm struggling with, Billy Zane as the Collector, he wants the key so that the demons can take over, but if he can scratch his palm and bring demons forth anyway, then why do they even need the key?
Exactly.
if they can already exist in our world and with the sun and light, whatever that mystical is,
Why do they need to get into this one room? They could go anywhere and take over, but they needed to get into that one hotel.
What do you think was the best scare or gore effect?
To me, this movie really wasn't gory. And nothing really scared me per se. Well, you got to remember, I watched the Saw series when I'm bored on a Saturday. So it takes a lot to get to me when it comes to blood and gore.
I want to make a distinction here between something that actually got into your guts versus just the basic definition of a gore effect, which is we see somebody get punched through the face, straight through the face. We see a dude's chest get opened up. We see a lady, her arm gets ripped off. How is that not gory?
I don't know. Maybe just because it's an older movie that it just didn't seem real compared to today's CGI effects, which I'm not taking it out of the context of its time. I'm just saying that I think that makes it harder for me when I look back or when I watch older movies to find any of them to be scary or gory. Because I'm so desensitized by what's in today's media. But I would say watching the lady get her arm ripped off.
I think it helps that she seems like a nice person. She's the one that calls in the drifter to the cops in the first place.
Right.
Which she saw that roll of money that Breaker had. Having him out of jail, maybe she could have tried to blackmail him or just know that if he stuck around, she could get some cash from him one way or another. But instead, she calls it in.
She told him he could stay as long as he liked. She wasn't going to ask any questions. But, she wasn't very good to our heroine. She was kind of rude to her.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a backstory there.
Well, there probably is. I would have appreciated maybe just understanding why she was so rude to her.
It helps that Irene getting her arm ripped off because it's her and she's one of the nicer as far as morality.
That's true. Compared to Roach, they were all Mother Teresa.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen him get his arm ripped off.
I know.
We barely saw him get axed. What's up with that? I think they were running out of money at that point.
They spent it all on claymation of the demons.
They spent it all on that puppet effect of having the Crypt Keeper walking at the beginning of the movie, and he's obviously blue screened in.
Yeah.
Oh, that was bad.
That was really bad. Yes, it was.
Even for the time, that was bad.
The special effects in that movie were not the best. It's kind of expected. To me, it was more of like a B movie than a box office, big money, big budget kind of film.
But I'll always appreciate practical effects like they used in this.
Yeah, I mean, they were good. It just definitely could have been better.
How about when the boy got turned?
That had me giggling the way they put a bunch of silly putty on his face. Tried to make him more contorted with these fake vampire fangs. It gave me a good laugh.
I couldn't tell how many of the shots were an actual person in makeup and how many of the shots were maybe just a puppet that they moved around.
Yes. I was like, this is what we're doing? Okay.
I like the concept of it, though, when it slid its tongue inside that chest wound. And it's just so creepy and sick.
Yes. And it also, I realized when I watched this movie that Billy Zane is bald in every single movie that he's ever been in except for Titanic. And I'm wondering now if he wore a wig or a toupee.
I'm pretty sure he did.
That would make sense. I mean, he looks great without hair and he looks great with hair.
There have to be some earlier movies where he also had hair. Real or fake.
I thought the shaved head look, the baldness, was more recent. I didn't realize he'd been rocking it for so long. But he still looks good. I'll give him that.
What was your favorite scene or performance?
I actually really liked his character. I thought he did a good job with what he had to work with. He really was convincing when he was showing the people their deepest desires to try to get them to join the dark side.
How would you describe his performance?
It's not Oscar worthy, if that's your question.
Well, I don't really put much faith in the Oscars. As an audience member, you were entertained.
Yes, his character was good. It was entertaining. It was definitely one of the stronger ones in the movie. I would say even stronger than Jada's. He had to show, I think, more diversity in this movie as far as trying to connect with each character.
Jada's hamstrung by the fact that she doesn't come into play until the second half of the movie.
She really doesn't. At first, I was like, is she really our heroine? I thought for sure it was going to be the prostitute, and then...
Really?
Yeah.
What made you think that?
Because she was so much stronger in the beginning. She was more around. She was more present in the scenes. She had a connection with multiple characters in the movie. So to me, it made a little more sense. Granted, these were more physical connections. But who was it? The post guy? I can't remember his name right now, who worked at the post office.
She had that love triangle with him and
Roach, yes. And she seemed to have a good connection with the owner of the hotel. And even drunk Uncle Willie.
Okay, yeah. Now that you've said that, I see where you would think she would be the final girl.
But once she joined the dark side, of course, that changed.
It also would have been an interesting character journey.
It would have been the prostitute turned heroine.
She's struggling with her self-worth at the beginning. People are using her. And then maybe Breaker comes along, and once he discovers who his successor is, it's like, Lady Prostitute, it's you. You're so much more than you think you are. Jesus loves you.
Take the Jesus blood. Cover yourself with it. She's used to leaking fluids, that's all I'm saying.
Oops, I got a little on your hand. Don't wipe it off. It's God's presence.
Jesus loves you.
William Sadler proves once again that he is one of the best character actors. He's played scumbags, stodgy, white-collar types, and here he gets to play the hero for most of the movie. So anytime he pops up, he's like one of the favorite actors on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that being said, Billy Zane, he's just so good at being cocky and slimy.
He is.
And when he has that little dance with Geraldine, I actually thought that maybe he had another side to him besides the murder and mayhem.
I know, I did too. But then he was like, nope, I'm just trying to get what I want from people.
He wants to take her with him. Now, in that moment, not what's going to happen in the future, but in that moment, do you think he's really giving it real thought that he wants her to be his ride-along, his ride or die?
No.
So then what do you think he was going to do with her?
He was going to use her for what he needed, and then he was going to dispose of her. AKA kill her.
I'm going to go the other way.
Are you?
Yeah, and say that it makes the movie more interesting to me, because for most of the movie, he's just playing that one side really well, but just that one side over and over. And for somebody like that, who has behaved one way so long, I'd like to think that the way he's given everybody else a fantasy, he has a fantasy of what it would be like to have a partner. So I want to believe he's genuine in that moment, but I think once he gets it, he doesn't look like a guy who really knows how to be in a relationship.
No.
So like a month later, ultimately I think he would drop her pretty fast.
Like a hot potato.
But I don't think he's being insincere in that moment, because at that point in the movie, or at least he thinks, he's already won. So, what do you think could improve the film?
A bigger budget? No. Less claymation? I think the storyline just needed more substance to it, and that really is probably what would have made the movie better. More character development, more depth.
Have you read many Stephen King novels?
I've read a few. I read Christine, Pet Sematary. My mom had a couple of his books whenever I was a kid, and so I read some of them.
Because I think this rips off the Stephen King formula too much. You got this group of small-town folk with their love triangles and character quirks, and they're slowly being picked off due to seduction by evil. I'm thinking Needful Things, The Stand, Salem's Lot.
Oh, yeah.
If it isn't a copy of King, then it's all the tropes of the survive to daylight horror flick.
You've always got to make it to daylight in a horror flick, and then you're guaranteed to live.
But even Breaker says, maybe we just need to make it till daylight. I'm not quite sure.
He's like, I don't know what's going to happen once daylight happens.
Which, I get it. He's probably not been in a lot of situations where he has to be the leader.
Right.
That's the worst pep talk to give a group of scared people.
I hope we make it till morning.
But trying to think back to the first time I saw the movie, which I didn't watch it in theaters, I was too young for that. I think maybe the late 90s, early 2000s.
Made it a blockbuster night?
Not even that. I think once they did reruns on TV.
Oh, okay.
But the one detail that actually surprised me back then, and still makes me think about it now, watching it again, is that the mailman didn't end up betraying everyone.
You thought he was going to?
Well, especially after he shoots out the eyes of that one demon.
True.
And then that energy goes right into him. He gets zapped by it.
Well, maybe because he was planning on going postal at his local post office.
That too.
Yeah.
That feels like another foreshadowing.
It was. All those grenades he had, and guns with no bullets.
But then Roach, shown immediately to be out for number one, he does exactly what you expect him to.
Of course.
Everyone you think is going to die, and in some cases how they die, it's exactly how it happens. So I wish it threw a few more curveballs at us.
From the moment Roach showed up, I was like, okay, here we go. Here's the alpha male asshole.
So, the final girl trope, it came out of films like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. Do you particularly like that structure?
Not necessarily. I always think it's good to show that strong female character, but it doesn't always have to be in a horror movie.
When you're watching a movie like that, do you immediately try to imagine yourself in that situation as that character, or are you more like standing back like a scientist watching how she does it? Like, oh, I don't know if I would have done it like that kind of thing.
I'm definitely more like if I was in that situation, I probably wouldn't have done that, but okay. Type of viewer. Especially in the ones where, like, they're making really dumb decisions, like running upstairs instead of running out the door. I'm like, why are we not just running out the front door? I have a lot of questions here.
Stuff like that, when that happens, because I've written a lot of stuff, I don't mind that they run up the stairs and not out the door, but just give me a reason why they did it.
Because they heard a bump, and they had to go investigate.
Oh, but that depends on what point in the movie that is. If they know there's a killer, then they should not be investigating.
But that's what they do. And then they're like, oh my god, the killer's upstairs. How did this happen? And I'm like, because you went upstairs.
How do you feel about the argument that final guy horror movies aren't as engaging compared to when it's a final girl, like Elm Street 2 or The Evil Dead?
In any horror movie you watch, you know there's going to be at least one survivor. Does it make a difference to me if the character is a female or a male? Not really.
I've heard part of the argument about final guys not being as good. This is just what I've seen people talk about. That you want the more vulnerable, physically vulnerable woman so that when she survives, it makes more of an impact. She has more of a mountain to climb.
I mean, men can be vulnerable.
Yeah, men can be vulnerable. It's just however you characterize them. I don't think gender needs to play a role like that.
I think it's in Hollywood men can't be vulnerable. But in real world, men can be vulnerable, and I think it's not just a woman.
I saw an interview with Russell Crowe, and one of the movies he talked about was A Beautiful Mind. And you look at his character in that, Russell Crowe is a physically big guy, but he's so vulnerable in that movie.
Exactly.
So I think it's just a problem with Hollywood and relying on the easy way out, the shorthand.
Of course.
Why are they still doing it like that?
Because what makes money? It works.
But I don't know if it's that specifically that works.
Because all they're doing these days are remakes and reboots. We've lost our creativity in Hollywood this current moment in time.
Are you more fond of horror stories that have a disparate group of characters facing the threat, or when there's a partnership/strong prior relationship between the heroes or victims?
I enjoy both kinds, to be honest. It's empowering when you see people who have a prior relationship really further bond and come out of this stronger, but Group of Strangers can be just as entertaining to watch, especially when you have a bunch of different personalities and watching them all try to work together for the first time.
I think with usually the high body count that's associated with horror movies, I'm going to go with the disparate group, because if they know each other previously and have a backstory already, then I want them to survive the experience because it makes it more impactful. But usually they end up killing most of the people anyway, so then you might as well just make them strangers.
I was going to say it never works that way.
Yeah. So it's like somebody says, "Oh my god, I'm finally ready to admit I love you." And then she dies.
Of course.
Okay, you give us what we want for a second and then immediately take it away, so it's like, why even bother? It feels emotionally manipulative.
I mean, you've got to have some attachment to your characters.
But you can do that with strangers. We did that with Demon Knight.
Yeah, but had they been a group of best friends, it probably would have been a lot more entertaining.
In some way they had a prior relationship because...
The post office guy whose name I can't remember, Roach, the prostitute.
Well, they were all long-term residents of the hotel.
Yeah, it was pretty much everyone but our hero. And of course, Mr. Billy Zane.
What do you think of the demon hell subgenre of horror? Do you think it has any remarkably good sides or inherent weaknesses where the scares are concerned?
They're typically, to me, not as much of a horror as much as they are like a thriller type. It's more on the edge of your seat and not so much like a scare fest.
Is that because it takes it outside the realm of real life?
Yes. That's the type of horror that really gets me, or things that are likely to happen in real life. And to me, this was just a very unlikely, improbable scenario. So it seemed more fantasy thriller.
It's hard for you to be afraid of nuclear waste demon blood. I get you. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
I think that's what our other horror fan on the show, Ian, I think he's said the same thing on a prior episode. When you see that psychopath with a gun, it's easier to be afraid of that because it happens.
It does. You know, nuclear waste demons rising from the ground is just not something you read about on the news all the time. Or ever.
Billy Zane serenading you outside your window, probably not going to happen.
No, that's definitely a fantasy.
90s Billy Zane, absolutely. Hunky hunk. Our second film is Warlock, where the eponymous male witch awaits death in 17th century Boston for worshipping the devil. Of course, the rest of the movie wouldn't happen if he was executed. So the Warlock is thrust forward in time to 1980s Los Angeles. Once there, it's revealed that he must collect various parts of a book which holds the true name of God, and when it is said backwards will undo creation and plunge reality into darkness. Luckily, Red Fern, the Warlock's mortal enemy, has also been thrown across time. Basically the plot of Terminator, but a warlock instead of a robot killer.
You said it.
Because I knew you were thinking it.
Yes, that's true.
And it's not like this is the first time anybody's made that connection. I'm not saying...
Definitely not.
I'm not saying I'm the first. Waitress Cassandra...
With a K.
...ends up serving as Red Fern's guide after the Warlock puts a spell on her that will have her dead of progressive old age before the end of the week. Break out your witchcraft for dummies and learn the ins and outs, such as avoiding salt, hallowed ground, and using unbaptized child fat to brew potions that will grant you the ability to fly. Sarah, what did you think of Cassandra? Both of today's flicks focused on final girls that get brought into the struggle as opposed to being there from the beginning. Do you like that approach?
Yes, and I thought she was a better final girl. I just felt like she took more action. She did more to try to stop the Warlock from taking over.
The script allowed her to do more, whereas in Demon Knight, a lot of the stuff is Geraldine reacting to what Breaker's telling her.
She was more of following orders, and Cassandra with a K was more of an independent thinker, and she was trying to help her Redfern defeat the Warlock.
What's so great is that she starts out very annoying and self-centered, and at first I'm thinking, crap, she's sticking around the whole movie? But they give her that real journey.
They did.
When she's annoying and idiotic, it feels real. I lived in LA. I've met people like that.
I was going to say, she was definitely your typical LA girl in the beginning.
But not a Valley girl.
No.
Which is nice. But once she sees the damage the Warlock can do, she straightens up, gets involved. She and Kelly Maroney from Night of the Comet are the best examples of characters that completely exceeded what I thought of them at first, where they ended up being my favorite performance of the movie.
She was definitely the best character in the movie, I will say.
If Cassandra had been plucked out of time like Redfern, then I would expect her to be a badass right off the bat, and her arc wouldn't have been as enjoyable.
I can agree with you on that. I think that's pretty accurate.
Is Cassandra somebody you might have hung out with?
No.
Really?
No.
Oh, you elitist.
What I found most annoying about this movie was her thirst for Redfern and that whole subplot they were trying to create.
You didn't find anything sexy about Richard E. Grant?
No, I didn't. I felt the entire subplot of are they going to get together? Are they going to kiss? Are they going to hook up? It wasn't necessary.
The trapper look he had with the fur, and he's got that whip, and he knows all the stuff about witchcraft. He seems like a really a protector archetype.
He really does, but he also has that badass vibe around him because he had those, I don't remember what it was, but it's where they like trap your fingers to your toes. He carried that around with him like he couldn't wait to find the Warlock, and he was going to strap that thing back on him like in the beginning of the movie.
Sometimes older movies aren't helped by the decade they were made in, but looking back, do you feel the 80s backdrop was a plus or minus when it comes to Warlock?
It was a plus. I don't know if it would have had as much success if it was a film that was made in more current times. The 80s had a certain campy vibe about them, and I think that really fit in well. I was a little worried when I first started watching because it was the first time I'd seen it, and I thought this was going to be a period piece that was set in the 1600s. And I was going to be a little upset with you, I'm not going to lie. But as soon as we flash forward to the 80s and we had our single girl living with the gay man, I was like, okay, Frank, you haven't led me wrong this time.
You breathed a sigh of relief.
I did. I was very worried.
I won't have to kill Frank now.
I won't. I was like, I don't have to watch men with ponytails and lederhosen walk around.
You told Stacy to gas up the car. You were ready to jump in and drive up and get me. And then Cassandra came on screen. You had your keys in your hand. You're like, oh, you put the keys back down. Okay.
I'll sit back down now.
Something about that 80s airhead quality. Whatever the typical early 20s character from like the 70s or the 90s or 50s, I don't think it would have played as well with that puritanical 17th century Redfern character.
It was the right decade.
Sarah, what do you think of fantasy horror versus the straight murder type of horror? Halloween, Psycho. You did mention earlier you don't find it as scary. Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of the straight type of horror.
So much.
Is there anything in those movies that you think, some tropes in those movies that sometimes gets you down and it's like, well, this wouldn't happen if it was a fantasy horror, or maybe it would be done a little better in that?
I think what it is, I don't do well with the non-believability. Like, I'm very much a realist, and so if it doesn't have that potential to happen in the real world type of scenario, then it's just not as enjoyable for me.
Well, let me throw this at you. Not that I necessarily want to be the champion of fantasy horror and convert you or anything. I always feel like there's at least one thing we can try to get at one side or the other of an argument. As much as you like Cassandra, if this was in a straight horror movie, like one of the many Jeffrey Dahmer adaptations that's been made, and if she was a victim, a potential victim, wouldn't you be a little sad? More than likely she'd probably get killed in a movie like that.
I don't know. It's possible that she wouldn't. She was a smart enough character and she had a brain, so it's possible that she could have survived in a Jeffrey Dahmer type situation. Don't write her character off just because she's in a fantasy movie.
Oh, I'm not. I love her.
You're like, I'm sad I didn't see her breasts.
No comment. I respect all women, and I would never say such a thing.
You wouldn't have been upset if there was a topless scene in this movie, too. It's okay.
All I'll say is it was R-rated, so I'm surprised at the lack of breasts.
The few curse words probably gave it the R rating of the 80s and the, quote, gore, quote.
I see parallels between fantasy horror and science fiction. Both require setting up the rules of the universe. And when it's a guy with a knife, the rules are so obvious, painfully obvious.
What, don't die?
As long as you stay out of reach, he can't stab you. But when it's a demonic force trying to kill you, then you have to wonder, well, what are its powers? And that's most likely why when I do get into horror, it's usually sci-fi horror or fantasy horror. I like the world building.
A spirit horror, like a, what is it, The Omen, or, oh my god, the movie's right at the tip of my tongue.
The Exorcist?
The Exorcist, there we go.
And maybe throw in Rosemary's Baby in there too?
Yes, Rosemary's Baby.
No, the spiritual stuff, no, I don't really dig that. Because usually when it's possession stuff, it's like, well, why in fighting this evil force, why doesn't it just possess all the people involved?
Because the power of Christ compels some of the people to not be possessed.
Well, what about the mother? I don't think she was a righteous Christian, was she?
I don't know.
Ellen Burstyn's character?
That's true.
To see what I mean? There's like an inconsistency there. And also when it's a spiritual horror movie, it's usually very related to Christianity.
Always.
Listeners that are Christian, I'm not knocking Christianity. I'm just saying it sets up a very specific story, and that's always in the backstory, so it feels very samey.
That's a fair point.
I'm not a big fan of those type of movies either. I figured since you like the fantasy type that it would be not unheard of for you to also like the spiritual type of horror films as well.
Between a spiritual horror movie versus a guy wielding an axe, yeah, I think I would watch the spiritual horror.
You really just don't like the guy with the axe.
No, not really. So often the characters themselves are just blank slates of evil. I would like to hear Jason say something. Which I know all the fans out there are screaming at me. No, you idiot. He's not about that.
That's part of the fear.
Yeah, I know. But for me, I'm a character guy.
I know.
I want to get into his head.
But, a character can still have depth, even if they don't say a word.
How would you describe the horror elements in Warlock? Like, what was the most effective or memorable horror moment for you?
As I was watching the movie last night, I was thinking to myself, there is nothing horror about this at all. I guess you could kind of consider it with the witches when they went to the barn and there was the pentagram and all of that. Again, that goes back to the whole, it's more of like a thriller type of movie to me than a horror movie.
Oh my God, Sarah, don't do this to me.
I'm sorry. Sorry to let you down.
You're just so inured to the most X-rated horror stuff.
I'm just so desensitized.
When you say there wasn't anything horror in this movie, let me give you some exhibit A, B's, and C's here, and just leave it at that. Okay, people at home who haven't seen this movie yet. Warlock plucks a woman's eyes out of her head. He bites the tongue out of a gay man. I would have just said man, but since you mentioned the character earlier, I wanted to relate it.
He cut off his finger, too.
You see it. Did that surprise you at all when he cuts the finger off like that?
No, because as soon as he started showing off his ring, I was like, oh, he's about to take that finger off.
So I don't know how you can say that that's not horrific. Maybe it didn't affect you. Maybe it didn't scare you or make you blanch, but that is horror. This movie was R-rated, folks.
Because of the gay man.
Sarah's bar is just way too high.
It is really high.
I wonder at what age would this have scared you? At what point were you just totally over horror?
It probably would have scared me if I was like 13 or younger.
Okay, so it sounds like you had something of a normal childhood.
I did.
If you weren't really thinking of horrific moments, how about just a favorite scene in general?
I had a good giggle whenever they drove to the barn and they went in the house because they knew the warlock was there.
And Redfern sees the guy in the kitchen and he looks at him and he goes, Amish? And he said, Mennonite. I had a good laugh at that. And that was probably one of the better scenes in the movie, in my opinion.
I totally agree. I think that was the best scene in the movie.
The whole barn and being at the house. I thought that was the beginning of the intro to the final, but it was about halfway through.
That whole sequence, starting at the farm, ending at the rail yard.
Yes. When she was running at the rail yard, I was laughing so hard. You are like 2 inches away from grabbing him.
Well, she was super old.
She wasn't that old.
Sure she was.
She was like in her 50s or 60s.
No, she looked older than that. Or at least the movie, we were supposed to think she's older than that.
I guess.
Tout, tout, through and about your callow life in dismay. Rentum osculum tormentum. A decade twice over a day.
This guy put some kind of hoodoo hex spell on me. He made me 40 instead of 20. Is that what this guy did?
There's no crime which he's incapable. What was it he took from you?
20 years.
An object.
What kind of object?
Something small, something personal to you.
My bracelet. Like that? He took my charm bracelet.
Then you must reclaim it. Only then can the spell be countered.
Reclaim it?
We'll take your coach.
We'll take a minute here. Do you mean I gotta get my bracelet back to break the spell? Back from that warlock? The guy who finger paints with body fluids?
'Tis the one way. This you must do. There is no question of it.
Hey, you see this? Insulin. It's the one thing I must do. I hate it because I have to do it. I'll just cut and dye my hair again. Hey, 40 ain't so bad. I'll buy a little tennis skirt and prance around town like those bitches in their BMWs. Sorry, Redfern, but if you're nuts enough to want to find this guy, you're on your own.
You realize not
Realize? What?
what the spell has done.
It's aged me 20 years.
Not aged, aging.
Are you saying that tomorrow I'm gonna wake up 60?
I say this. Unless you find the warlock and thereby your bracelet, you shall die in but half a week.
Die?
Of old age.
That didn't help.
Now, I read, and I can't be sure if it's true, but I've read that they wanted to make the makeup more obvious, but she had an allergic reaction to it, so they had to tone down the makeup effect.
That's fair.
But when has someone chasing after a moving train not been suspenseful?
I just thought it was more comical because of how she was running and how close she was to the warlock.
This is where I wholeheartedly agree with you when you keep saying thriller. This whole sequence definitely was the thriller part of the movie.
Yes.
The bits throughout that reveal the mythology around the supernatural, and during that sequence, Redfern tells Cassandra to get a hammer and nails, and wherever she finds the warlock's footprint, hammer a nail into it, and that'll make it feel like the nail is actually going into his foot.
I like it when she got to the sand dune where he had fallen, and she just starts nailing his head.
Well, wasn't that so freaking satisfying?
It was. You could tell she was really enjoying it.
Absolutely. Movies, it's great when you can really get into it, and in that moment, it's like my ghost is right there next to her, and I can feel her pain, and she's like, I just want my bracelet back so I can become normal again. That bastard stole my bracelet, and he put a spell on me.
So I can be a hot 20-year-old again and not a 60-year-old grandma who can't even catch up to a slow-moving train.
Yeah, I think Laurie Singer, the actress, she really nailed it in that scene. Because you see that satisfaction when she's the old lady and she's got the nail in and he screams. She's like, yeah, you bastard, I got you.
Yes.
And then the disappointment when she does it again and she doesn't hear him cry out. It's like, why isn't this working?
Why won't you die?
I thought it was pretty clever, but did you like that little detail? The way he allays his pain is by putting that board on his feet and then the nails appear through it. That was fun.
Yes. I was like, what's he going to do with that board nailed to his foot?
I'd argue that there are some great exchanges between characters in this movie.
Yes.
Do you recall any lines that you really chuckled at?
Every time Redfern said, Cassandra with a K. We have to be real clear that it's not Cassandra with a C in this movie, I see.
Well, from Redfern's perspective, because he's such a fish out of water, for all he knows, that's like her title. That's the way you're supposed to say it. Maybe he thought that was like part of her last name with a K.
I mean, true.
There's a scene where Cassandra is driving Redfern, and she thinks she'll catch him up on the centuries he missed.
1691?
Aye.
Like almost 300 years ago?
As queer it seems to you, 'tis even more so to me.
You got KKTY Tucson, riding shotgun and keeping
No
you
little
company
people
during the
inside.
long,
I
long
gathered.
hours of the night.
Want to know how it works?
If you'll help find the warlock.
Highly doubtful. Hey, you know the Earth is round?
For some years now.
Ask me anything. I took 2 years of high school.
I love it. But she's like, she's blatantly herself. I don't know if she should have that much confidence, but maybe it's because she's so young, she just doesn't know better.
She's so proud. Trust me, if you're 40, you're not going to be saying, well, I completed 2 years of high school.
Well, if you look at the implications of her character, so she's a boarder at the gay dude's house, she's a waitress, she lives out in LA. To sustain yourself out there, that's not the easiest thing in the world. She's got some grit, she has to. We don't see her calling mom or having a bunch of friends she can lean on. So Sarah, what didn't work for you in Warlock?
It was the beginning of the movie where I was just mostly like, I don't know if this is going to work out for me.
Oh, it was all of 5 minutes. Come on.
No, the ending was good, but I always hope for such a strong ending, and I always get the Hollywood finish. It sounds like a hand job, but that's not what I mean. I was hoping that the ending was going to be a little bit better than what it was.
The final shot was very sweet.
Yeah.
But the climax, the fact that they think the pages of the book, the final pages, are safe because they're on hallowed ground. It's in a cemetery that's been blessed. I'm sure, because you're a 21st century lady, I'm sure you saw it coming a mile away when they're like, oh my god, they moved some of the graves. It's like, I'm sure the screenwriter was patting himself on the back like, oh my God, I'm so clever.
And when they came up on Redfern's grave, I was like, oh, okay, here we go.
There's one bit of that scene, though, I have to applaud them for, which is when Cassandra looks at the sign that talks about redevelopment and moving some of the grave sites. Some of the text is obscured, and I'm really glad they didn't do that obvious shot where it zooms in on the sign and then she wipes away some of the leaves so that you can clearly read the full sentence. They didn't do that, so that was cool.
No, they did not.
Going back to the Mennonite farm and the train, yes, that was so great. I could have used one more big interaction. Besides the climax, the farm scene is the only time all three of them are squaring off.
It was a lot of catch me if you can.
Besides that, I think Redfern and the Warlock are too cookie cutter compared to Cassandra. Like, it really is her movie.
Right.
At least one more scene of them prior to traveling through time, as much as you seem to hate 17th century history. I would love for you to meet a 17th century historian and then immediately slap him in the face or walk away in disgust, throw your drink at him. Ugh, 17th century, screw you, I'm out of here.
So you're saying we should make a trip to Plymouth Rock?
As far as seeing more of the Warlock and Redfern before the story really begins, the settlers in 1691 Boston, they're looking fearful. Show me some of the terrible things the Warlock did that engendered that sort of gloom.
Right, well, we know he killed Redfern's beloved.
We don't even know how.
Probably by doing witch stuff. Maybe potions or spells.
Would it have offended you if they had done a flashback and shown you?
Not if it was, like, wrapped into the story and I knew we were safely in the 80s and no longer in the 17th century.
Well, how great would it have been dramatically if the movie started with Warlock killing Redfern's girl? And so later, when Cassandra's asking Redfern about whether or not he's married, we'd have that dramatic irony, and with him, we would immediately know that, ooh, that's a sore spot. We just saw her get killed at the beginning, you know?
We knew that was coming.
Plus, I want to know more. Who was Redfern in the community? Did they respect him?
They didn't really say much about why he was the Warlock hunter.
Was he the only Warlock hunter? Did they have many of them?
Maybe he was just the chosen one.
I could see a version where maybe he's considered a bloodthirsty kook who spends too much time reading up on witchcraft and not enough time with his nose in the Bible or at Sunday sermons.
He's the town drunk.
Yeah, could you imagine if, even though he's ultimately doing good for the community, they shun him? That would have been cool.
Yes.
But do you think the movie feels complete with that ending, or were you curious what a sequel might do?
I didn't think a sequel was necessary. I feel like they wrapped the story up. So I don't know. They would have been able to get much material out of a second movie.
Well, then I hate to break it to you in the audience. They made, as far as I know, 2 more sequels.
Did they really?
Yeah, and Julian Sands as the Warlock. He came back for the second movie, but I think he realized it probably shouldn't have been made, so he didn't come back for the third one. Or they weren't going to pay him enough, who knows.
Or both.
Yeah, but those sequels are terrible.
Yeah.
Because the second one, it's like the Twilight version of Warlock. It's all built around a teen love story.
Oh, no. No. I will watch the one movie and just pretend like there's only one.
Well, if you ever need a new bad movie, I think that could be a fun bad movie, as long as you know it's not going to be a good movie.
As long as you go into it with zero expectations, other than it will be awful.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this up with a too long, didn't listen, rapid fire list of questions. To start us off, which movie had the best villain?
Warlock.
Who is the better lead? Redfern, Cassandra, Breaker, or Geraldine?
Redfern.
Better effects?
Warlock.
Most coherent story?
Warlock.
Better horror flick? For normies, not you, but for everybody else.
Demon Knight.
Which one was more fun?
Warlock.
Better movie to insert into your Halloween night movie marathon?
Demon Knight.
If you were dropped into one of these scenarios, would you rather drive cross-country to stop a warlock or hole up in a hotel with strangers getting besieged by telepathic demons?
Drive across country.
Yeah, because at least you got that fun little trip, even if you die.
Right. And I mean, they flew.
What did you think of that whole bit with Redfern being afraid to fly?
That was pretty funny to me, too.
And finally, perhaps the most important question I'll ask. If the Collector wanted to seduce your husband, Stacy, with a fantasy in order to get him to betray us to a pack of demons, what promise or offer would be most successful?
Oh, that's a good question. Free games for life?
I could see that. I could also see Billy Zane coming to Stacy in a dream and going, "Hey, buddy, what if I could get you retired right now?"
Also that.
Full pension?
Full pension.
Yeah, buddy, full pension.
All benefits. And free games.
Yeah, the universe would end shortly thereafter.
Yes. And he'd die happy.
Billy Zane would be entering the house and we'd be going, "Why, Stacy, why?" "Because I can retire now."
Yes.
You've reached the end of this episode of The Screen Companion. Thank you for listening.